Hello, and welcome to another episode of Glorious Life on Wheels. Boy, do I have an information-packed video for you today. You know, the cost of vehicles today is more than my parents paid for their first house. My parents' first house in the 50s was $15,000. You'd be lucky to find a used good car for that now. It's tens of thousands of dollars to get a new car these days, and don't even look at a new truck. So it's even more important that we make the vehicles that we have last. I think we're all on tighter budgets these days, and I tell you, my vehicles, my oldest one is a 2008. So that's 17 years old. My newest vehicle is a 2018. That's 7 years old. So I keep my vehicles a long time and I want them to last. And I'm sure you do too. So in this video, I'm going to give you some really great tips on how to make your vehicles go up to $250,000, maybe even 300,000 miles. And it's not that hard to do. So come on, and I'm going to share all these tips with you. Now, a lot of these tips I'm going to share with you, my dad told me when I was a young girl who had just started driving, but he didn't go into a lot of detail as to the whys. He simply said, do this, don't do this, do this, don't do this. You know how parents tend to be. But I recently came across a video from a channel called Chris from Beachside Auto Parts. And I think it is the best explanation that I have come across on the things you need to do and not do in order to make your vehicle last a long time. And as I said, with the cost of new cars these days and even used cars, we all want to make our vehicles last as long as possible. Now, the video that I got these tips from, or rules as he calls them, is called 6 Rules That Make Your Car Last 300,000 Miles. And I will leave a link to that video so you can watch it in its entirety, because I'm not going to go over every detail or try to explain everything, because I can't do as good a job as he did, but I can give you the basics and get you started. So let's get started, okay? Now, I'm not doing these in any particular order, and it may not be the same order that Chris did them, but here's what I'm going to share with you. Number 1, and this is something my dad told me too, don't ever let your fuel in your tank go below 1/4 of a tank. Now, according to my dad, it would cause the junk or crud on the bottom to go through your engine and up and through your system. But what Chris said, the reason that he advises not going below 1/4 of a tank is because the fuel actually cools and lubricates the fuel pump. And what he said is that the more fuel that you have, the lower the fuel pump temperature. And the less fuel that you have, the higher the fuel pump temperature, and that ends up damaging your fuel pump, which makes total sense. And a fuel pump is not an inexpensive item to repair. So he strongly urged you to not go below 1/4 of a tank. Now, I don't go below 1/4 of a tank when I'm around my home base in town, because I just don't. But when I'm on the road, I up that to 1/2 a tank, because I never know when I'm going to come across another gas station sometimes if I'm in an unfamiliar place. So I make it a habit of not going below 1/2 a tank when I'm on the road. Number 2 is regular oil changes. Now, my dad told me this too. What he basically told me was, change your oil every 3,500 miles or you'll blow your engine. Just do it. So, you know, he didn't go into details because parents back then didn't give you a whole lot of explanation. They just told you do this and you did it. But Chris went into more detail, and I'm going to refer to my notes to tell you exactly what he said. He talked about oil creates a film of protection between the metal parts in your engine. And he talked about how important it is to keep that oil changed, but also the quality of the oil. Now, he said it is absolutely imperative that you use a high quality synthetic oil. And he said that sheep oil breaks down more, which offers less protection for the engine parts, which means engine problems. Also, synthetic oil resists heat much better. It prevents sludge, and it maintains the viscosity longer, which is the thickness or the texture, I guess, for the lack of a better word, of the oil. So it is really important to have a good quality synthetic oil. And then he talked about how often to do your oil changes. And he said if you're doing short trips, like if you're doing a lot of city driving, if you're stopping a lot, like, traffic lights, or if you're in a hot climate or in a very wet climate, he said 3,000 to 4,000 miles is what you need to be doing. Now, he said if you do a mix between city and highway, he said every 5,000 miles is adequate. But I still do every 3,500 miles on my vehicles. Now, I know one vehicle I got, it said, every 7,000. But I don't do that. I do every 3,500 miles. I'd rather be safe than sorry. It's a lot cheaper to get an oil change than to replace an engine. And number 3 is changing your air filter. What his recommendation is if you're in a regular climate, a normal environment, you can change your air filter every other oil change. But if you're in a really dusty, dirty, sandy environment, he strongly urges you to change your air filter every time you get your oil changed. Now, I would recommend considering even doing it more frequently if you're somewhere like Quartzsite, because I know a lot of my viewers will be in Quartzsite, and it is dusty. I mean, you get out of your vehicle and walk just a little ways, you get back in your vehicle, you have dust all over your clothes, everything. Imagine what's happening to your engine and your air filter in your vehicle. And he talked about how a dirty air filter results in more carbon buildup. And more carbon buildup affects your engine temperature, which affects your engine performance and ultimately can damage your engine. So for those of you who are going to be out in the desert for extended periods of time, do consider changing your air filter more often. It's so much cheaper than having to replace your engine or rebuild your engine because of the carbon buildup or damage because of heat to your engine. Number 4 is using a top tier fuel. Now, living in California, I have to admit, I have not done this. With gas at almost $5 a gallon in some places, I'm looking for the cheapest gas I can find. And there is one station that I have been going to for a while, and the lines are down the street because the gas is up to $1 less a gallon there. But now that I've listened to this video that Chris did, I am reconsidering, and I am going to look for top tier fuel. Now, let me tell you what top tier fuel is, because after he said that, I was like, well, what difference does it make? Well, I did a little research and I looked up top tier fuel, so I'll tell you what I found out. Top tier fuel has significantly more detergent additives than regular gasoline. And basically what it does is it prevents carbon deposits in your engine. So it is, as you're driving, it's actually cleaning your engine. So it really is important. My mom used to have a saying, and she would go, you know what? Sometimes you're penny wise and dollar foolish, meaning you may save a few pennies, but you're in the end going to lose dollars. And I've come to realize and decide, based on watching that video, that I'm not going to be looking for the absolute cheapest gas station, off-brand, no-name gas station. But here are some of the stations that use top-tier fuel. Shell, Exxon, Mobil, BP, and Costco. And since, there's a Costco not all that far from me, I'm going to go back to using Costco. But it also was noted that top-tier fuel, when I looked it up, actually improves your fuel economy. So let's say you're paying a few more cents or a little more per gallon, but you're getting better gas economy. It kind of evens out and you're not damaging your engine. Also, it keeps your fuel injections and your intake valves and pistons clean or cleaner, which can reduce rough idling, hesitation, and knocking. Who knew all this? I sure didn't. But for those of you who are looking for the cheapest no-name gas, you might want to reconsider, especially given what it says about the difference in top-tier fuel and regular fuel. Now, there are sites that will tell you where there's top-tier fuel, but it'll also say that at the gas station. It'll say if it's top-tier fuel or not. So, just some food for thought. Well, how am I doing so far? Are these tips helpful? Are you learning something new? Or are you even being reminded of something you forgot or have stopped doing and have decided to do again now that you're watching this video? Let me know. Put something in the comment section to let me know if this video has been helpful or useful to you. It encourages me and it lets me know to keep giving you this kind of information. We have 3 more tips, so come on and let me finish up here. Number 5 is using a PEA-based fuel injector cleaner. I had never even heard of such a thing. Now, that's not something my dad told me. I don't know what that is, or I didn't know what it is, but apparently what it is, it's called a polyether amine. It's, again, PEA-based fuel injector cleaner. And he recommends using it at least every 5,000 to 7,000 miles, and even better after every oil change. What it does is it removes carbon deposits from the injectors. It also helps keep the engine temperature stable, which we've already talked about how important that is. Because just one time, he said, your engine overheating can take up to 10,000 miles off your engine's life. Do you believe that? So yeah, this is pretty important. And I looked this up and it says how to use it because I had no idea. I was like, do you put it where the oil is? Where do you put it? Well, you put it in your gas tank. And the best and most efficient way to do it is you put it in the gas tank before filling up, then you fill up, and that's how it works the best. So again, he recommended a PEA-based fuel injector cleaner. Number 6 is flush your coolant every 3 to 5 years. I didn't know this, but you have some coolants that will say on them, I think, lifetime guarantee or 10 years. He said he has never, ever come across a coolant that will last 10 years. And he suggests changing it. Based on him saying 3 to 5 years, I would say that equates to about 30 to 50,000 miles. And he talks about it helps to stop corrosion forming in the radiator. And it does a whole lot of other things. But again, go over and check out his channel because he goes into a lot more detail because he's the expert. I'm not. But this is one of the things that he recommended. And the last thing was changing your transmission fluid every 50 to 60,000 miles. He goes into a lot of detail in his video explaining how not changing the transmission fluid really causes major problems, and it also impacts your driving experience. And he said by the time you realize there's a problem, it's too late. So changing the fluid can prevent the problem because a new transmission is what, like $4,000 to $5,000 to $6,000? I mean, really expensive. But do go over and check his channel. He goes into much more detail. He's much more of an expert. Well, I'm not an expert at all. He is the expert. So, and let him know that Carol from Glorious Life on Wheels sent you over there. But I hope this has been helpful. I hope it's been beneficial. None of us want to have to spend the money to rebuild an engine or get a new engine or transmission or even dump it into a new or even a used vehicle because they're so expensive these days. And we're paying enough for groceries and everything else that we don't need to be paying more for auto repairs and new vehicles because of small things we could have done differently that would make our vehicles last so much longer. All right. I love each and every one of you. May your journeys be filled with joy and blessings. And don't forget, go check out my live, Glow Live, at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. And I hope to see you over there. All right. Bye-bye. Until next time.